The desert sun beat down mercilessly on Logan Jensen's back as he rode into the dusty outskirts of Nogales, Arizona territory, on a blistering June afternoon in 1879, when he spotted something that made him pull his horse to an abrupt stop. A woman stumbling through the scrub brush, her dress torn and her face sunburned, looking like she had been wandering for days. Logan dismounted quickly, grabbing his canteen as he approached. The woman looked up at him with desperate green eyes, her auburn hair matted with dust and sweat. She could not have been more than 22 or 23 years old, close to his own 25 years. When she saw him, she collapsed to her knees. "Easy now," Logan said, kneeling beside her and offering the canteen. "Take it slow." She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. After a moment, she pushed the canteen away and gasped for breath. That was when Logan noticed the locket around her neck, a delicate silver piece that seemed incongruous with her current state. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "What are you doing out here alone?" Logan asked, looking around for any sign of a wagon or other travelers. The woman touched the locket at her throat almost unconsciously, her fingers trembling. "I was with a wagon train. We were attacked 3 days ago. Bandits. They took everything, killed most everyone. I ran and hid in the rocks. I have been trying to reach town ever since." Logan felt a surge of anger at the thought of bandits terrorizing innocent travelers. It was a common enough occurrence in the territory, but that did not make it any less infuriating. "Can you ride?" "I think so." He helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. "My name is Logan Jensen. I have a ranch about 5 miles from here, but we should get you to town first. The doctor should look at you." "Grace Thompson," she said, "and I would be grateful." Logan lifted her onto his horse, then swung up behind her. She leaned back against him, and he could feel how thin she had become, how exhausted she was. As they rode toward Nogales, he found his eyes drawn repeatedly to that locket around her neck. "That is a beautiful piece," he said, trying to keep her talking so she would not slip into unconsciousness. Grace's hand went to it again. "This holds my last happy memory," she said softly. The words struck Logan as unbearably sad. He wanted to ask more, but they had reached the edge of town. Nogales was a rough settlement, perched right on the border with Mexico, a place where cattle ranchers, miners, and drifters all mixed together. The main street was lined with false-fronted buildings, their paint peeling in the harsh sun. Logan guided his horse to the doctor's office, a small building with a faded sign that read Dr. Illy Morrison, physician. He dismounted and helped Grace down, surprised by how light she felt in his arms. The doctor was a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. He took one look at Grace and ushered them inside, set her on the examination table there. Logan did as instructed, then stepped back. Grace reached out and caught his hand. "Will you stay?" "Of course," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "Doctor." Morrison examined her thoroughly, checking her for injuries beyond the obvious dehydration and sun exposure. "You are lucky this young man found you," he said to Grace. "Another day out there and you would not have made it. You need rest, fluids, and proper food. Where are you staying?" Grace's face fell. "I have nowhere. Everything I had was in the wagon." "She can stay at my ranch," Logan said before he could think better of it. When both Grace and the doctor looked at him in surprise, he added quickly, "I have a housekeeper, Mrs. Martinez. It would be proper. And Grace needs somewhere safe to recover." "I cannot impose," Grace protested, but her voice was weak. "It is not an imposition," Logan insisted. "Besides, you said bandits attacked your wagon train. Until the marshal can look into it, you should not be alone in town." Dr. Morrison nodded. "He is right. The Jensen ranch is respectable and Mrs. Martinez is a fine woman. You will be safe there." Grace looked at Logan for a long moment, her green eyes searching his face. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you. I will repay you somehow." "No need," Logan said. "Let us just focus on getting you well." After Dr. Morrison gave Grace some water and a tonic for her strength, Logan helped her back onto his horse. The ride to his ranch was slower this time, as he wanted to avoid jarring her too much. Grace kept touching that locket, and Logan found himself increasingly curious about it. The Jensen ranch came into view as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. It was not the biggest spread in the territory, but it was respectable. A sturdy ranch house with a wide porch, a barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Cattle grazed in the distance, and Logan felt the familiar pride of ownership. Mrs. Martinez came out onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. She was a stout woman in her 40s, a widow who had worked for Logan's family since before his parents died 2 years ago. When she saw Grace in Logan's arms, her eyes widened. "Senor Logan, what has happened?" "This is Miss Grace Thompson. I found her in the desert. Her wagon train was attacked. Dr. Morrison said she needs rest and care. Can we prepare the guest room?" Of course. Mrs. Martinez hurried forward, her maternal instincts taking over. "Poor girl, you look half dead. Come, we will get you cleaned up and fed." Logan carried Grace inside and up the stairs to the guest room, a pleasant space with lace curtains and a comfortable bed. He set her down gently, and Mrs. Martinez immediately began fussing over her. "I will heat water for a bath," Mrs. Martinez said. "Senor Logan, you go downstairs. This is women's work now." Logan nodded and left, though he found himself reluctant to go. There was something about Grace that called to him, something beyond simple compassion for someone in need. He went to the kitchen and pumped water for coffee, needing something to do with his hands. An hour later, Mrs. Martinez came downstairs. She is clean and in a nightgown. I brought her some broth, but she fell asleep before she could finish it. That poor child has been through something terrible. Did she say anything else about the attack? Only that she lost everyone she was traveling with. Her uncle and his wife were taking her to California. They were going to start a new life there. Now she has nothing. Logan stared into his coffee. She has that locket. I noticed it. She would not let me take it off even for the bath. She said it holds her last happy memory. I wonder what that means. Mrs. Martinez gave him a knowing look. You are very interested in this girl. I am interested in anyone who has been hurt by bandits. The marshal needs to know about this attack. Of course, Mrs. Martinez said, but her tone suggested she did not quite believe that was Logan's only motivation. I will make breakfast in the morning. Perhaps she will tell us more then. Logan nodded and went outside to tend to his horse and check on the ranch. His foreman, Jack Sullivan, met him at the barn. Heard you brought back a woman, Jack said, his weathered face curious. News traveled fast on a ranch. Found her in the desert. Bandits attacked her wagon train. Jack's expression darkened. That is the 3rd attack in 2 months. Those bastards are getting bolder. I know. I am going to talk to Marshal Cooper tomorrow. Maybe we can organize a posse. Count me in if you do. We cannot let them keep terrorizing folks. After finishing his evening chores, Logan returned to the house. He ate a quiet dinner, then went upstairs. He paused outside the guest room door, listening. No sound came from within. Grace must still be sleeping. He went to his own room but found sleep elusive. His mind kept returning to Grace's words about the locket. What memory could be so precious that she would hold onto it through such trauma? And what had happened to make it her last happy memory? The next morning, Logan woke to the smell of Mrs. Martinez's cooking. He dressed quickly and went downstairs to find Grace already seated at the kitchen table, wearing one of Mrs. Martinez's dresses, which hung loose on her thin frame. Her auburn hair was clean now and pulled back in a simple braid, and the bruises on her face were more visible in the morning light. "Good morning," Logan said. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Grace said. She looked up at him, and he was struck again by the depth of sadness in her green eyes. "Thank you for everything you have done. I do not know what would have happened if you had not found me. I am glad I was there." Logan sat down across from her. "Grace, I need to report the attack to the marshal. Can you tell me exactly where it happened?" Grace took a shaky breath. "We were about 20 miles northeast of here, following the old stage road. It was early morning. The bandits came out of nowhere, maybe 8 or 10 of them. They wore masks over their faces. They started shooting, and my uncle tried to fight back, but—" Her voice broke, and she touched the locket again. Logan noticed it was an unconscious gesture, something she did whenever she was upset or thinking about something difficult. "Take your time," he said gently. "They killed my uncle and his wife. The driver, too. There were 2 other families with us, and they killed most of them as well. I hid behind some rocks when the shooting started. I saw them taking everything from the wagons, supplies, horses, valuables. Then they set fire to the wagons and rode off. When I was sure they were gone, I came out, but everyone was dead. I started walking, trying to reach town." Mrs. Martinez set plates of eggs and bacon before them, her eyes glistening with tears. "Pobrecita," she murmured. Logan felt rage building in his chest. "Did you notice anything distinctive about any of them? Anything that might help identify them?" Grace thought for a moment. "One of them, the leader I think, had a scar on his hand. I saw it when he was taking things from my uncle's wagon. It ran from his wrist to his knuckles." "That is good. That could help." Logan ate a few bites of his breakfast, then said, "I am going to town to talk to Marshal Cooper." "You should rest today. You are safe here." "I want to come with you," Grace said. "You should rest." "I need to do this," Grace insisted, her voice stronger now. "Those men killed my family. I need to help catch them." Logan could see the determination in her eyes and knew there was no point in arguing. "All right. We will leave after breakfast." The ride to Nogales was quiet. Grace sat in front of Logan again, and he was acutely aware of her presence, the way she fit against him, the scent of the soap Mrs. Martinez had given her. He told himself his feelings were purely protective, but he knew it was more than that. There was something about Grace that called to him on a deeper level. Marshal Tom Cooper was a grizzled veteran of the frontier, a man who had seen too much violence and death but still believed in justice. He listened to Grace's story with growing anger, his jaw clenching when she described the murders. "This has got to stop," he said when she finished. "These bandits have been terrorizing the territory for months. We need to organize a proper posse and hunt them down." "I will ride with you," Logan said immediately. "I figured you would. Jack Sullivan too, I imagine. I will round up some other men. We leave at first light tomorrow." Grace stood up. "I want to help." Marshal Cooper shook his head. "Miss Thompson, I appreciate your courage, but this is dangerous work. You should stay somewhere safe." "I am staying at the Jensen ranch," Grace said. "And I can shoot. My father taught me before he died. I can help." "Grace," Logan began, but she cut him off. "They killed everyone I had left. I need to do this." The marshal looked at Logan, who shrugged helplessly. "She has a point, and if she can shoot, we could use the help." "Fine," Marshal Cooper said reluctantly, "but you do exactly as I say." "This is not about revenge. This is about justice," Grace nodded. "I understand." As they left the marshal's office, Logan said, "Are you sure about this? It will be dangerous." "I am sure," Grace said. "I cannot just sit and do nothing." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Logan gave Grace a rifle and a revolver, both of which she handled with surprising competence. She had not lied about knowing how to shoot. They practiced behind the barn, and Logan was impressed by her accuracy. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Grace finally opened up about the locket. Logan had not asked directly, not wanting to pry, but she seemed to feel the need to explain. "My father gave this to me," she said, holding it up. The silver gleamed in the fading light. "It was the day before he died. I was 17. He had been sick for a long time, consumption, and he knew he did not have much time left. He called me to his bedside and gave me this. Inside is a picture of him, my mother, and me when I was just a baby. It was taken before my mother died. He told me to remember that I had been loved, that I had been happy once, even if things seemed dark now." She opened the locket, and Logan saw a faded tintype photograph of a young couple with a baby. The woman had Grace's eyes and the man had a kind face. "That was the last time I was truly happy," Grace continued, her voice soft. "With my father before he died. After that, I went to live with my uncle. He was good to me, but it was not the same. And now he is gone too. Everyone I have ever loved is gone." Logan felt his heart ache for her. Without thinking, he reached out and took her hand. "You are not alone, Grace. You have me and Mrs. Martinez. We will look after you." Grace looked at him, and something passed between them, a connection that went beyond words. "Why are you being so kind to me? You do not even know me." "I know enough," Logan said. "I know you are brave. I know you are strong. I know you have suffered losses that would break most people, but you are still standing. That tells me everything I need to know." Grace squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Logan. You have given me hope when I thought I had none left." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from gold to purple to black, stars emerging one by one. Logan found he did not want to let go of her hand, and she did not pull away. The next morning, the posse assembled at dawn. Marshal Cooper had gathered 8 men, including Logan, Jack Sullivan, and 2 ranchers from neighboring spreads. Grace was the only woman, and she received some dubious looks, but no one questioned her presence after Marshal Cooper vouched for her shooting skills. They rode northeast, following Grace's directions. The desert landscape was harsh and unforgiving, all rock and scrub and heat. After several hours, they reached the site of the attack. The burned-out wagons were still there, along with hastily dug graves. Grace dismounted and walked to the graves. Logan followed, giving her space but staying close in case she needed him. She knelt beside one grave, her lips moving in silent prayer. "This is where I buried my uncle and his wife," she said. "I did not have time to do it properly. I had to get to town." "You did what you could," Logan said. "They would understand." Marshal Cooper and the other men were examining the site, looking for tracks. After a while, Jack called out, "Found something. Tracks heading south toward the border." They followed the trail through the afternoon, the sun beating down mercilessly. Grace kept pace with the men without complaint, though Logan could see the exhaustion in her face. Around mid-afternoon, they spotted something in the distance, a makeshift camp in a rocky canyon. Marshal Cooper held up his hand, signaling everyone to stop. They dismounted and crept forward on foot. Through a gap in the rocks, they could see 4 men lounging around a campfire. Horses were tied nearby, and Logan could see supplies stacked under a crude shelter. "That is them," Grace whispered, pointing to one man. "That is the one with the scar." Marshal Cooper nodded. "All right, here is what we are going to do. We spread out, surround them. When I give the signal, we move in. Nobody shoots unless they shoot first. We want them alive if possible." They moved into position carefully. Logan found himself next to Grace behind a large boulder. "Stay behind me," he whispered. "If shooting starts, keep your head down." "I can handle myself," Grace whispered back, but there was no anger in her voice, only determination. Marshal Cooper's signal was a sharp whistle. The posse moved in from all sides, weapons raised. "Nobody move." The marshal shouted, "You are under arrest for murder and robbery." For a moment, the bandits froze. Then one of them went for his gun. All hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from both sides. Logan fired at the man who had drawn first, hitting him in the shoulder. The bandit went down, screaming. Another bandit fired back, and the bullet ricocheted off the rock near Logan's head, sending chips of stone flying. Grace was firing steadily, her face set in grim concentration. Logan saw one of the bandits aiming at the marshal and shot him before he could pull the trigger. The man collapsed. The fight was over in less than a minute. 2 bandits were dead, 2 wounded, and the man with the scar was on his knees with his hands up, Jack Sullivan's rifle pressed to his back. "Do not shoot," the scarred man shouted. "We surrender." Marshal Cooper moved forward, his gun trained on the prisoners. "Smart choice. Jack, tie them up. Logan, check on the wounded." Logan holstered his gun and moved to examine the injured bandits. One had a shoulder wound, not life-threatening. The other had been shot in the leg and was bleeding heavily. Logan used his bandana to make a tourniquet. Grace stood frozen, staring at the scarred man. Logan saw her raise her revolver, pointing it at the bandit's head. Her hand was shaking. "Grace," Logan said quietly, moving toward her. "Do not do it. He killed them," Grace said, her voice breaking. "He killed my uncle, my aunt. He deserves to die." "He does," Logan agreed. "But not like this. Let the law handle it. They will hang him, but it will be justice, not murder. He murdered them." Logan stepped in front of her gun. "I know, and I know how much you are hurting. But if you kill him now, it will haunt you forever. Trust me, Grace. Let the law handle this." Grace's hand shook violently. Tears streamed down her face. For a moment, Logan thought she might pull the trigger anyway. Then she lowered the gun and collapsed against him, sobbing. Logan held her, letting her cry out her grief and rage. The other men looked away, giving them privacy. After a while, Grace pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I am sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Logan said. "You are stronger than you know." They rode back to Nogales with the prisoners in tow. It was late when they arrived, the town dark except for the lights in the saloon and the marshal's office. Marshal Cooper locked the bandits in the jail cells, promising they would stand trial within the week. "You did good work today," he said to the posse. "All of you. Miss Thompson, I am sorry for your loss, but I hope knowing these men will face justice brings you some peace." "Thank you, Marshal," Grace said quietly. Logan and Grace rode back to the ranch in silence. Grace seemed lost in thought, her hand on the locket. When they arrived, Mrs. Martinez was waiting on the porch, relief evident on her face. "Thank God you are back safe," she said, embracing both of them. "I was worried sick." "We are fine," Logan assured her. "The bandits are in jail. Good. Now come inside. I have kept dinner warm." After they ate, Mrs. Martinez retired to her room, leaving Logan and Grace alone in the parlor. Grace stood by the window, looking out at the dark landscape. "I almost killed that man today," she said. "I wanted to. Part of me still wants to." "I know," Logan said, moving to stand beside her. "But you did not. That took real strength." "I do not feel strong. I feel empty, lost. Everyone I loved is gone, and I do not know what to do now." Logan took a deep breath, then said, "You could stay here." Grace turned to look at him. "What?" "Stay here. On the ranch. Mrs. Martinez could use help around the house, and you said you can shoot. We could always use another hand. It would give you time to figure out what you want to do next." "Logan, I cannot just impose on you indefinitely. It is not an imposition." "Grace, Logan struggled to find the words. "I know we have only known each other a few days, but I feel connected to you. I want to help you. Please stay." Grace searched his face. "Why are you so good to me?" "Because when I look at you, I see someone worth being good to," Logan said simply. "Someone brave and strong and beautiful, even if you cannot see it yourself right now." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I do not deserve your kindness." "Yes, you do." Logan reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "Will you stay for a while?" Grace said. "Until I figure things out." "That is all I ask." The days turned into weeks. Grace settled into life on the ranch, helping Mrs. Martinez with the house and the cooking. She proved to be a quick learner and a hard worker. Logan found excuses to be near her, teaching her to ride better, showing her the ranch, sitting with her on the porch in the evenings. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their lives. Logan told her about losing his parents to a fever 2 years earlier, about the struggle to keep the ranch running. Grace told him about her childhood, about the happy years before her mother died, about her father's slow decline. "I was angry at him for a long time," Grace admitted one evening. "For getting sick, for leaving me. I know it was not his fault, but I was young and scared and I did not understand. The day he gave me this locket, I told him I loved him, and I meant it. That was the last happy moment I had, the last time I felt like everything might be all right. Since then, it has just been one loss after another." "Maybe it is time to start making new happy memories," Logan suggested gently. Grace looked at him, and in the fading light, Logan thought he saw something shift in her eyes. "Maybe you are right." A month after the bandit attack, Logan had to drive a herd of cattle to Tucson to sell. It would be a week-long trip. He asked Grace if she wanted to come along, and to his surprise, she agreed. "I could use a change of scenery," she said, "and I have never seen Tucson." They set out with Jack Sullivan and 2 ranch hands to help with the herd. The journey was long and dusty, but Grace never complained. She rode alongside Logan, and he found himself marveling at how much she had changed in such a short time. She smiled more now, laughed occasionally. The haunted look in her eyes had not entirely disappeared, but it had lessened. On the 3rd night, they made camp under a brilliant canopy of stars. After the others had gone to sleep, Logan and Grace sat by the dying fire. "Thank you for bringing me along," Grace said. "I did not realize how much I needed to get away." "I am glad you came," Logan said. "Grace, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Logan took a deep breath. He had been wrestling with his feelings for weeks, trying to convince himself it was too soon, that she needed time to heal. But he could not keep it inside any longer. "I am falling in love with you," he said. "I know it is fast, and I know you have been through so much, but I cannot help how I feel. You do not have to say anything. I just needed you to know." Grace stared at him, her expression unreadable. For a long moment she said nothing, and Logan's heart sank. Then she reached up and unclasped the locket from around her neck. "You know why I have worn this every day since my father gave it to me?" she asked. "Because it holds your last happy memory." "Yes, but also because I was afraid. Afraid that if I took it off, I would forget what happiness felt like. Afraid that I would never feel it again. This locket was all I had left of joy and love and family." She looked down at it, then back at Logan. "But you have shown me that I can be happy again. That I can have a future, not just a past. You have given me hope, Logan, and somewhere along the way I started falling in love with you too." Logan felt his breath catch. "Grace, I am scared," she admitted. "I am scared of losing you like I have lost everyone else. But I am more scared of never taking this chance, of letting fear rule my life. So yes, Logan Jensen, I am falling in love with you too." Logan reached out and cupped her face in his hands, then kissed her gently. Grace kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I will not leave you," Logan promised. "I cannot promise nothing bad will ever happen." Life is too uncertain for that. But I promise I will do everything in my power to stay by your side, to build a life with you." "That is all I can ask," Grace said. She put the locket back around her neck, but Logan noticed something different in the way she touched it now. It was no longer a desperate clutching at the past, but a gentle acknowledgement of it. They reached Tucson 2 days later and sold the cattle for a good price. Logan took Grace around the city, showing her the mission church, the shops, the bustling streets. He bought her a new dress, dark blue calico that brought out the color of her eyes, and she protested, but let him anyway. On their last night in Tucson, they had dinner at a small restaurant. Over plates of beef and potatoes, Logan said, "I have been thinking. When we get back to Nogales, I want to do things properly." "What do you mean, I want to court you? Officially?" "I want everyone to know that you are my girl, that my intentions are honorable." Grace smiled, a real smile that lit up her whole face. "I would like that very much." The journey back to the ranch seemed shorter somehow. Logan found himself impatient to get home, to start this new chapter of their lives. When they finally arrived, Mrs. Martinez took one look at them and beamed. "Finally," she said. "I was wondering how long it would take you two to figure it out." "Were we that obvious?" Grace asked, laughing. "Like the sun coming up in the morning," Mrs. Martinez said. "Now, Senor Logan, you will do this right, yes? Court her properly." "That is exactly my intention." And so Logan courted Grace in the traditional manner, despite the fact that they were living under the same roof. He took her to town dances, to church socials, on long rides through the desert. He brought her wildflowers and treated her with respect and affection. Grace bloomed under his attention. The sadness never entirely left her eyes, but it was balanced now by joy and hope. She threw herself into life on the ranch, learning to manage the house, to care for the animals, to be a partner in the enterprise. 3 months after that night under the stars, Logan proposed. He did it simply, without grand gestures, on the porch where they had spent so many evenings together. "Grace Thompson, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. Will you marry me? Will you build a life with me here on this ranch, raise a family with me, grow old with me?" Grace had tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "Yes. Yes, Logan, I will marry you." They were wed in October of 1879, in the small church in Nogales. Marshall Cooper gave Grace away since she had no family left. Mrs. Martinez wept through the entire ceremony. Jack Sullivan served as Logan's best man, grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. Grace wore a simple white dress with lace at the collar, and she kept the locket on, as Logan had known she would. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Logan kissed her deeply, and applause erupted from the small gathering of friends and neighbors. The reception was held at the ranch. Mrs. Martinez had outdone herself with the food, and someone had brought a fiddle. People danced and laughed and celebrated late into the night, but Logan only had eyes for Grace, his wife, his partner, his love. When the last guests had left, they stood together on the porch, looking out at the land that was now theirs together. "Are you happy?" Logan asked, pulling Grace close. Grace touched her locket, then looked up at him. "I was wrong, you know, when I told you this held my last happy memory." "It does not anymore." "No, no, because I have new happy memories now, so many of them. Today, our wedding day, that night under the stars when you told me you loved me. Every morning I wake up and see you. Every evening we spend together. This locket still holds that picture of my parents and me, and I will always treasure it. But it is not my last happy memory anymore. It is just the first of many." Logan felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I love you, Grace Jensen. I love you too, Logan. Thank you for finding me in that desert. Thank you for saving my life." "You saved mine too," Logan said. I did not even realize how lonely I was until you came along." They went inside hand in hand, ready to begin their life together. The first year of marriage was an adjustment, as all first years are. Grace learned the rhythms of ranch life, the endless cycle of work and weather and seasons. Logan learned how to be a husband, how to be patient and understanding and present. They had their disagreements, but they always talked them through, always found their way back to each other. Mrs. Martinez doted on them both, clearly thrilled to have a full household again. She taught Grace her recipes and her housekeeping tricks, and Grace soaked it all up like a sponge. The two women formed a close bond, almost like mother and daughter. In the spring of 1880, Grace realized she was pregnant. She told Logan one evening after dinner, and his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He whooped with joy, picked her up and spun her around despite her laughing protests, then immediately became overprotective. "You should not be lifting anything heavy," he said, "or riding horses, or working in the garden in the hot sun." "Logan, I am pregnant, not made of glass," Grace said, amused. "Women have been doing all those things while pregnant since the beginning of time." "Not my wife," Logan said stubbornly. "You need to rest, to take it easy." Grace rolled her eyes but was secretly pleased by his concern. As her pregnancy progressed, Logan did indeed treat her like she was made of spun sugar. He hired a young woman from town to help Mrs. Martinez so Grace would not overwork herself. He insisted she sit down whenever possible and worried constantly about her health. "He is driving me crazy," Grace confided to Mrs. Martinez one afternoon. The older woman laughed. "That is how you know he loves you. My husband was the same way when I was pregnant with my first. It is annoying, yes, but it comes from a good place." Grace gave birth in late November of 1880 to a healthy baby boy. They named him Samuel Thomas Jensen, after Grace's father and her uncle. Logan wept when he held his son for the first time, and Grace fell even more deeply in love with him watching him with their child. Parenthood transformed them both. Logan had never imagined he could love something as much as he loved his son. He would sit for hours just watching Samuel sleep, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes. Grace discovered reserves of strength and patience she had not known she possessed. The sleepless nights and constant demands of an infant were exhausting, but she had never been happier. "I keep thinking about my mother," Grace said one night as she nursed Samuel. "I wish she could have met him. My father, too. They would have loved him so much." "They are watching," Logan said, sitting beside her and putting his arm around her shoulders. "I believe that. And they are proud of you, Grace. Proud of the woman you have become, the mother you are." Grace leaned against him. "This locket holds 3 generations now. My parents and me, and now Samuel. A legacy of love." As Samuel grew, the ranch prospered. Logan expanded the herd and bought more land. Grace managed the household with skill and efficiency, proving herself an equal partner in the enterprise. Mrs. Martinez adored Samuel and spoiled him shamelessly, much to his parents' amusement. When Samuel was 2, Grace became pregnant again. This time, Logan was more relaxed about it, trusting that Grace knew her limits. Their daughter was born in the summer of 1883, a tiny thing with her mother's green eyes and auburn hair. They named her Caroline Rose Jensen. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew, healthy and happy. Samuel was adventurous and bold, always getting into mischief. Caroline was quieter, more thoughtful, with an artistic temperament. Logan taught Samuel to ride and rope. Grace taught Caroline to read and sew. Both children learned the value of hard work and the importance of family. In 1885, tragedy struck when Mrs. Martinez fell ill with pneumonia. Despite the doctor's best efforts, she died within a week. Logan and Grace were devastated. Mrs. Martinez had been like family, had been there through all the important moments of their lives together. They buried her in the small cemetery in Nogales, next to her husband. Samuel and Caroline, now 5 and 2, did not fully understand what was happening, but they sensed their parents' grief and were unusually quiet. "She was so important to us," Grace said at the graveside. "She helped me when I first came here, taught me so much. I do not know what I will do without her." "We will remember her," Logan said, holding Grace close while Samuel and Caroline clung to their legs. "We will tell the children about her, make sure they know how special she was. That is how we honor her memory." Grace reached up and touched her locket. "Another loss. Sometimes I think about that day you found me in the desert, how empty my life felt then, and I am so grateful for everything that has happened since. But I wish loss did not have to be part of it." "Loss is part of life," Logan said gently, "but so is love. And the love is worth the loss, do you not think?" Grace looked at him, then at their children, then back at him. "Yes, yes, it is." The years continued to pass. Logan and Grace grew older, but their love only deepened. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, cattle rustlers and financial troubles. They celebrated birthdays and holidays, watched their children grow and learn and become their own people. In 1890, when Samuel was 10 and Caroline was 7, the family took a trip to Tucson. It was their first real vacation, and the children were beside themselves with excitement. They stayed in a hotel, ate in restaurants, explored the growing city. On their last evening there, as they walked through the plaza, Grace stopped suddenly. Logan followed her gaze and saw what had caught her attention: a photographer's studio with a sign advertising family portraits. "Let us do it," Grace said. "Let us have our picture taken together." They went inside, and the photographer arranged them carefully, Logan standing behind Grace, who was seated with Caroline on her lap. Samuel stood beside his father, trying to look grown up and serious. The photographer disappeared under his black cloth and told them to hold still. The flash went off and the photographer emerged. "That should be a fine portrait. Come back tomorrow and it will be ready." The next day they picked up the photograph. It showed a handsome family, healthy and prosperous and happy. Grace studied it for a long time. "What are you thinking?" Logan asked. "I am thinking about this locket," Grace said. "About how it held my last happy memory for so long, and now look at us. We have created so many happy memories together. This picture is proof of that." She opened the locket and carefully removed the old tintype of her parents and herself as a baby. She held it tenderly for a moment, then wrapped it in a handkerchief and placed it in her reticule. "I will always keep that picture," she said. "But I think it is time for the locket to hold something new." She took the new photograph and carefully cut it to fit the locket, then placed it inside. Now when she opened it, she saw her current family: Logan, herself, Samuel, and Caroline. "There," she said, satisfied. "Now it holds my happy present, not just my happy past." Logan kissed her temple. "I love you, Grace Jensen." "I love you too, Logan, more than I can say." The children grew into young adults. Samuel became a fine rancher, learning everything Logan could teach him about cattle and land management. He was a natural leader, confident and capable. Caroline developed a talent for drawing and painting, capturing the beauty of the desert landscape in her work. She was quieter than her brother, but equally determined. In 1895, when Samuel was 15 and Caroline was 12, Grace became pregnant again, much to everyone's surprise. She was 38 years old and had assumed her childbearing years were behind her. "Are you worried?" Logan asked when she told him. "A little," Grace admitted. "I am older now, but also excited. We have been blessed with 2 wonderful children. Why not a third?" The pregnancy was harder than her previous ones. Grace was tired more easily and suffered from various aches and pains. But she remained in good spirits, and Logan was as attentive as he had been with their first child. Their third child, another boy, was born in early 1896. They named him Henry William Jensen. He was small but healthy, with Logan's dark hair and Grace's green eyes. Samuel and Caroline were fascinated by their baby brother. Samuel declared he would teach Henry everything he knew when he was old enough. Caroline drew endless sketches of the baby sleeping, playing, eating. "Our family is complete now," Grace said one evening, holding Henry while Samuel and Caroline sat nearby doing homework. Logan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "It is perfect," Logan agreed. The turn of the century brought changes to Arizona territory. Nogales continued to grow, becoming more settled and civilized. The railroad came through, bringing new opportunities and new people. The wild frontier was slowly being tamed, though it retained its rugged character. Logan and Grace watched these changes with mixed feelings. The frontier had been hard but also free, and there was something bittersweet about seeing it transformed. But they adapted, as they always had, finding ways to make the changes work in their favor. Samuel turned 21 in 1901 and announced his intention to marry a young woman from town named Martha Evans. Logan and Grace liked her immediately. She was smart and practical, with a good sense of humor and a genuine love for Samuel. The wedding was held at the ranch in the spring of 1902, a big celebration that brought together friends and family from across the territory. Grace looked at her grown son, so handsome in his suit, and felt tears prick her eyes. "Where did the time go?" she asked Logan. "I do not know," Logan said, "but I would not trade a single moment of it." Samuel and Martha built a house on the northern section of the ranch, close enough to help with the work but far enough for privacy. A year later, they had a daughter, and Logan and Grace became grandparents. "Look at us," Grace said, holding her granddaughter for the first time. "We are growing old." "Speak for yourself," Logan teased. "I am as young as ever." "Your gray hair says otherwise." "That is not gray, that is distinguished silver." Grace laughed, the sound still as beautiful to Logan as it had been the first time he heard it. Caroline showed no interest in marrying, to Grace's mild concern and Logan's secret relief. She was focused on her art, had even begun selling some of her paintings to people in Tucson and Phoenix. She was independent and self-sufficient, and though Grace sometimes worried about her unmarried state, she was also proud of her daughter's accomplishments. Henry was growing up fast, a wild child who loved the ranch and everything about it. He followed Samuel around constantly, learning to ride and rope and work cattle. He had his mother's determination and his father's even temper. In 1910, Arizona was on the verge of statehood. The territory had changed dramatically from the rough frontier Logan had known growing up. There were schools and churches, proper law and order. The days of bandits and lawlessness were mostly gone, replaced by the challenges of modern life. Logan was 56 years old now, and though he was still strong and active, he felt his age more than he used to. Grace was 53, her auburn hair now streaked with silver, her face lined with the evidence of a life well lived. They celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary in October of 1909 with a party that filled the ranch house to bursting. Samuel and Martha were there with their 3 children now. Caroline had come home from Phoenix, where she was studying at an art school. Henry, now 13, had helped Mrs. Sullivan, Jack's wife who had taken over the housekeeper duties, prepare the food. As the party wound down and the last guests left, Logan and Grace found themselves alone on the porch, their favorite spot. It was the same porch where Logan had first brought Grace all those years ago, where he had proposed, where they had shared countless evenings together. 30 years, Grace marveled. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that you found me in the desert. Other times it feels like a lifetime ago. It was a lifetime ago, Logan said. A whole lifetime we built together. Grace touched the locket at her throat, as she still did whenever she was reflective or emotional. The gesture was as familiar to Logan as his own heartbeat. "You ever look at the picture?" Logan asked, nodding toward the locket. "Every day," Grace said. She opened it and looked at the family portrait from Tucson, now 20 years old. "Though it is out of date now, we have all gotten older and we have added Martha and the grandchildren. Maybe we should get a new picture taken." "Maybe," Grace agreed, "but I also like this one. It captures a moment in time, a specific happiness. The current happiness is different but no less real." Logan pulled her close. "I love you, Grace. I have loved you since that first day, and I will love you until my last breath. And I love you, Logan. You saved me in more ways than one. You gave me a reason to live again, to hope again, to love again." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the stars come out. After all these years, they could still sit in silence together and feel completely connected. In 1912, Arizona finally achieved statehood. It was a momentous occasion, and Nogales celebrated with parades and speeches and fireworks. Logan and Grace attended the festivities with Henry, now 16 and nearly grown. "You two have lived through the entire transformation of this place," Marshall Cooper, now retired and in his 70s, said to them. "From wild territory to modern state, that is quite a legacy." "The place has changed," Logan agreed, "but some things stay the same: family, love, loyalty. Those things do not change." "Spoken like a true romantic," the former marshal said with a grin. As they walked back to their wagon, Henry between them, Grace said, "He is right, you know. We have lived through incredible changes. Sometimes I can barely remember what it was like when I first came here." "I remember," Logan said. "I remember a beautiful woman stumbling through the desert, holding onto a locket and clinging to the past because she could not see a future. I remember falling in love with her courage and her strength. I remember building a life with her, one day at a time." Grace stopped walking and looked at him. "You are getting sentimental in your old age. I am allowed to be sentimental about the love of my life." Henry made a face. "You two are embarrassing." "Wait until you fall in love," Grace told him. "Then you will understand." "I am never falling in love," Henry declared. "It makes you act ridiculous." Logan and Grace exchanged amused looks, both knowing that Henry would eat those words someday. The years continued their steady march. Samuel took over more and more of the ranch operations as Logan gradually stepped back. It was hard for Logan to relinquish control, but he knew it was necessary. Samuel was a capable rancher, better with modern techniques than Logan was. The ranch prospered under his management. Caroline shocked everyone by falling in love with a teacher from Phoenix named David Andrews. They married in 1914 when Caroline was 31, and she finally seemed truly happy. David supported her art and encouraged her talent. They had one child, a daughter born in 1915. Henry grew into a fine young man, steady and reliable. He enlisted to fight in the Great War in 1917, causing Grace no end of worry. Logan was proud of his son's courage but shared his wife's fear. They spent the war years anxiously awaiting letters, praying for Henry's safe return. When Henry came home in 1919, safe but changed by what he had seen, Grace wept with relief. He had survived, though he carried scars both visible and invisible. With time and the healing power of the ranch, he slowly recovered his equilibrium. He married a nurse he had met during the war, a capable woman named Sarah, and they settled on the ranch to help Samuel manage the growing operation. Logan and Grace were in their 60s now, officially elderly, though neither felt particularly old. They still took walks together, still sat on the porch in the evenings, still found joy in each other's company. Their hair was white, their faces deeply lined, but their love was as strong as ever. In 1925, they celebrated their 46th wedding anniversary. The family gathered at the ranch, Samuel and Martha with their 5 children, the oldest now 23, Caroline and David with their daughter, Henry and Sarah with their young twin boys. The house was full of noise and laughter and life. As Grace looked around at her family, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. From the lonely, desperate woman in the desert to this, a life full of love and family and purpose. It was more than she had ever dared dream possible. That evening, after everyone had gone home or gone to bed, Logan and Grace sat on their porch one more time. "I have been thinking," Grace said. "About what?" "About that day you found me. About what I said about the locket holding my last happy memory. I was so wrong, Logan. That was not my last happy memory. It was just the beginning. Everything that came after, every day with you, has been a happy memory. Building this ranch, raising our children, growing old together. All of it." Logan took her hand and raised it to his lips. "We have been blessed." "We have," Grace agreed. She opened the locket and looked at the faded photograph inside. Their young faces looked back at her, Samuel and Caroline, just children. "Maybe I should update this picture, put in one with the grandchildren, or maybe," Logan suggested, "keep it as it is. A reminder of where we have been, even as we continue forward." Grace smiled and closed the locket. "You are wise, Logan Jensen. I have had a good teacher." They sat together under the stars, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. The desert night was cool and clear, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. It was a sound they had heard countless times over the years, a constant in a world of change. Grace leaned her head on Logan's shoulder and he wrapped his arm around her. Neither spoke, but no words were needed. After 46 years together, they understood each other perfectly. Logan thought about that day in 1879 when he had ridden out to check on his cattle and found Grace stumbling through the desert. What if he had taken a different route? What if he had left an hour earlier or later? The entire trajectory of his life had been determined by that chance encounter, but maybe it had not been chance. Maybe it had been fate, destiny, providence, or whatever you wanted to call it. Maybe they were meant to find each other to build this life together. "Logan," Grace said softly. "Yes. Thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing something worth saving when I could not see it myself." "You saved yourself," Logan said. "I just gave you a safe place to do it. We saved each other." "Yes," Logan agreed. "I think we did." The years after 1925 were peaceful ones. Logan and Grace were no longer active in the daily operations of the ranch, but they remained a presence, offering advice and support to their children and grandchildren. The ranch continued to prosper, adapting to the changing times while maintaining its core identity. In 1929, the stock market crashed, plunging the nation into the Great Depression. The ranch, like everyone else, felt the effects. Prices for cattle plummeted and money became tight, but the family pulled together as they always had. They grew vegetables, raised chickens, made do with what they had. The ranch had weathered hard times before and would do so again. Grace, now 72, found herself thinking more and more about the past. She spent hours looking through old photographs, touching the locket at her throat, remembering. Logan, at 75, moved more slowly now but remained sharp and engaged with life. One evening in the spring of 1931, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Grace said, "I've had a good life, Logan. Whatever happens from here, I want you to know that." Logan looked at her sharply. "Why does that sound like goodbye?" "It is not," Grace assured him. "I am not planning on going anywhere. I just want to make sure you know how happy you have made me, how grateful I am for every moment we have had together." "I feel the same way," Logan said, his voice rough with emotion. "You turned my life from black and white into color, Grace. You gave me everything worth having." They held hands and watched the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. It was beautiful, and they had seen it thousands of times before, but it never got old. In October of 1931, they celebrated their 52nd wedding anniversary. The family gathered again, even larger now with great-grandchildren toddling around. Looking at the crowd of faces, all stemming from the love between Grace and Logan, was humbling. Samuel, now 51 and completely gray, stood to make a toast. "To my parents, who showed me what real love looks like, what real commitment means. You have been an example to all of us, a standard to aspire to. Happy anniversary." Everyone raised their glasses and echoed the sentiment. Grace had tears streaming down her face, and Logan was not far behind. "We are just two people who found each other," Logan said when he was called upon to speak. "Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. Just two people who chose to love each other every day, through good times and bad, through joy and sorrow. That is all marriage is, a daily choice to stay, to love, to work together. We chose each other 52 years ago, and we would choose each other again every day since." Grace squeezed his hand. "Best choice I ever made," she said. The party went late into the night, filled with music and dancing and laughter. When the last guest had left and the house was finally quiet, Logan helped Grace up the stairs to their bedroom. They moved slowly now, both feeling the weight of their years, but they moved together. As Grace prepared for bed, she carefully removed the locket and placed it on the nightstand. Logan watched her from where he sat on the edge of the bed. "You still wear that every single day," he observed. "Of course," Grace said. "It is part of me now, a reminder of where I came from and where I have been, though its meaning has changed over the years." "How so?" Grace picked up the locket and opened it, looking at the old photograph inside. "When my father gave this to me, he told me to remember that I had been loved, that I had been happy. He wanted me to hold onto that memory because he knew I would face hard times. And I did. But then I found you, and you taught me that the past does not have to define the future. That new memories can be just as precious as old ones. This locket does not just hold my last happy memory anymore. It holds the foundation of all my happy memories, the proof that I come from love and that I have built a life full of love." Logan stood and wrapped his arms around her. "I love you, Grace, today, tomorrow, and forever." "And I love you, Logan, always." They climbed into bed and fell asleep in each other's arms as they had done for 52 years. The next morning, Logan woke to find Grace still asleep beside him. Her breathing was peaceful, her face relaxed. He watched her for a moment, marveling at how beautiful she still was to him. The lines on her face were marks of a life well lived, and her white hair was as lovely as her auburn had been. He got up quietly, not wanting to wake her, and went downstairs. Samuel was already in the kitchen, having come over early to discuss some ranch business. "Morning, Pa," Samuel said. "How are you feeling after yesterday?" "Tired but happy," Logan admitted. "It was a wonderful celebration." They talked business for a while, drinking coffee and eating the breakfast Samuel had prepared. After about an hour, Logan began to feel uneasy. Grace usually woke early, and it was not like her to sleep so late. "I am going to check on your mother," he said, interrupting Samuel mid-sentence. He climbed the stairs, moving as quickly as his old legs would allow. When he entered the bedroom, Grace was still in the same position, still peaceful, still asleep. "Grace," he said softly. "Grace, time to wake up." She did not respond. Logan's heart began to pound. He moved to the bed and touched her hand. It was cool. "Grace," he said louder, shaking her gently, but she did not wake up, and Logan realized with dawning horror that she never would. "Samuel," he shouted, his voice breaking. "Samuel, come quick." Samuel came running, taking the stairs 2 at a time. When he saw Logan's face, then his mother lying still in the bed, he understood immediately. "No," Samuel whispered. "No, Ma." Logan sank to his knees beside the bed, taking Grace's hand in both of his. She looked peaceful, as if she were simply sleeping. There was no sign of pain or distress. She had just slipped away in the night, quietly and gently. "She is gone," Logan said, and the words sounded impossible even as he spoke them. "She is really gone." The next few days passed in a blur. The family gathered, grief-stricken. Dr. Morrison, now very old himself, confirmed that Grace had died of heart failure in her sleep. "A peaceful way to go," he said. "No pain, no suffering. She just went to sleep and did not wake up." That was some comfort, but not much. Logan felt like half of himself had been torn away. Grace had been his partner for 52 years, his best friend, his love. The house felt empty without her, the world colorless. They buried Grace in the Nogales cemetery on a cool October day. The entire town turned out for the funeral. Grace had been well loved, respected for her strength and kindness. Logan stood beside the grave, Samuel on one side and Henry on the other, and watched as they lowered his wife into the ground. He thought about that locket she had worn every day, now buried with her. It had held her happy memories, first of her parents, then of their family. Now she was part of someone else's memories, treasured and missed. After the funeral, Logan returned to the ranch. The house was full of people bringing food and offering condolences, but he felt utterly alone. He went out to the porch, their porch, and sat in his usual chair. Grace's chair beside him was empty, and he knew it would remain empty forever. Samuel found him there as the sun was setting. "Pa, are you all right?" "No," Logan said honestly. "I do not think I will ever be all right again." "She loved you so much," Samuel said, sitting in Grace's chair, which felt wrong somehow. "Everyone could see it. You two had something special." "We did," Logan agreed. His voice was hollow. 52 years together, and it still was not enough. I wanted more time. I always wanted more time." "She would want you to keep living," Samuel said gently. "To find joy again. That is what she would say if she were here." Logan knew his son was right, but the thought of joy without Grace seemed impossible. Still, he nodded. "I will try." The weeks after Grace's death were the hardest of Logan's life. He had survived losing his parents, had lived through droughts and financial struggles, but nothing compared to this. The world felt empty without Grace in it. He threw himself into work, helping around the ranch as much as his old body would allow. Physical exhaustion helped him sleep at night, though he often woke reaching for Grace only to find her side of the bed empty and cold. One morning, about a month after the funeral, Samuel brought Logan something. "I found this when we were going through Ma's things," he said, handing Logan a small wooden box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Logan. His hand shook as he opened the first one. "My dearest Logan," it began. "If you are reading this, I am gone, and I am so sorry. I know you are hurting, and I wish I could be there to comfort you. But I want you to know that I have no regrets. Our life together was everything I could have hoped for and more. You gave me a reason to live when I thought I had none. You showed me that love could heal even the deepest wounds. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose. I have been blessed beyond measure, and it is all because of you." Logan's vision blurred with tears. He read on, Grace's words of love and gratitude washing over him. She had written these letters over the years, apparently, documenting their life together, their joys and challenges. It was her final gift to him, a way of saying goodbye when she could not do so in person. He read every single letter, some written decades ago, others more recent. In the last one, dated just a week before her death, she wrote, "I think my time is coming soon. I can feel it, but I am not afraid. I have lived a full life, a happy life. I am grateful for every moment, every memory. Take care of yourself, my love. Find joy where you can. Remember me, but do not let grief consume you. I will be waiting for you whenever you are ready to join me. Until then, live well. You gave me everything, Logan Jensen. Everything." Logan clutched the letter to his chest and wept. Not the quiet tears of polite grief, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from the very core of his being. He cried for the loss of his wife, his partner, his love. He cried for the years they would not have together. But he also cried with gratitude for the years they did have, for the life they built, for the love they shared. Slowly, over the following months, Logan began to heal. It was not a linear process. Some days were better than others. But he kept going, kept living, because that was what Grace would have wanted. He spent time with his children and grandchildren, finding comfort in their presence. He told stories about Grace, keeping her memory alive. He sat on the porch in the evenings, imagining her beside him, hearing her voice in the wind. 5 years passed. Logan was 80 years old now, his body frail but his mind still sharp. He still missed Grace every single day, but the grief had softened into a bittersweet ache. He could remember her now with more joy than sorrow, could smile at their memories rather than just weep. One evening in the spring of 1936, Logan sat on the porch and watched the sunset. It was particularly beautiful, all gold and crimson, and he wished Grace could see it. "Beautiful, is it not?" said a voice, and Logan's heart stopped. He turned, and there was Grace, looking exactly as she had on their wedding day. Young and beautiful, her green eyes bright, her auburn hair shining. She was wearing her white dress and the locket around her neck. "Grace," Logan whispered. "How?" "It is time," Grace said gently, holding out her hand. "Time to come with me." Logan looked down at himself and was shocked to see that he too was young again. The aches and pains were gone, the weakness and fatigue vanished. He stood easily and took Grace's hand. "I missed you so much," he said. "I know," Grace said, "but we are together now. Forever." Logan looked back at the ranch house one last time. Through the window, he could see Samuel coming out onto the porch, calling for him. His son's face crumpled with grief as he saw Logan's body in the chair, peaceful and still. "They will be all right," Grace said. "They are strong. We raised them well." Logan nodded. "Yes, we did." Hand in hand, they walked away from the ranch toward a light in the distance. As they walked, Logan felt lighter than he had in years, unburdened and free. "I love you, Grace Jensen." "I love you too, Logan Jensen. Always and forever." They walked into the light together, ready for whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that they would face it side by side as they always had. Back at the ranch, Samuel sat beside his father's body and wept. But even through his grief, he could not help but notice the expression on Logan's face. He looked peaceful, yes, but more than that. He looked happy. In Logan's hand, loosely clutched, was a photograph. Samuel picked it up and recognized it immediately. It was the family portrait from Tucson, the one that had been in Grace's locket. Somehow it had found its way into Logan's possession. Samuel smiled through his tears. His parents were together again, wherever they were. That knowledge, that certainty, brought him comfort. They had found each other in life against all odds, and not even death could separate them for long. The funeral was large, well attended. Logan Jensen had been respected in the community, known as a fair man, a good rancher, a devoted husband and father. But more than anything, people remembered the love between him and Grace, a love that had lasted a lifetime and beyond. They buried Logan beside Grace, their graves marked with simple headstones. On Grace's was engraved, "Beloved wife and mother. She found happiness and shared it with all she knew." On Logan's, "Beloved husband and father. He saved a life and gained a love." The ranch continued under Samuel's management, then later under Henry's son. The family remained close, bound together by the example Logan and Grace had set. The story of how they met, how Grace had stumbled through the desert clutching a locket that held her last happy memory, only to find that it was really the beginning of her happiest memories, became family legend. It was told to children and grandchildren, passed down through the generations as a reminder of the power of love, hope, and second chances. The ranch itself prospered through the decades, adapting to changing times but maintaining its core identity. In the main house, now over a century old, hung that family portrait from Tucson, Logan and Grace with young Samuel and Caroline. It was a reminder of where the family came from, of the love that started it all. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the desert wind blew just right, ranch hands swore they could see two figures sitting on the old porch, holding hands and watching the sunset. Some said it was just shadows and wishful thinking, but the family knew better. Logan and Grace were still there, still together, still in love. Death had not ended their story. It had simply moved it to a new chapter, one that would last for eternity. The locket itself was passed down through the family, eventually coming into the possession of Caroline's granddaughter, who treasured it as Grace had. The photograph inside had been carefully preserved, a window into the past, a testament to a love that had overcome every obstacle. And so the story ended, as all good stories must, with love triumphant. Logan and Grace had found each other in the harsh Arizona desert in 1879, two people who needed each other more than they knew. They built a life together, raised a family, weathered storms both literal and figurative. Their love had been tested by time, by tragedy, by the simple daily challenges of life, and it had never wavered. Grace had told Logan that the locket held her last happy memory. She had been wrong. It held the first of countless happy memories, memories that stretched across decades and touched countless lives. From despair and loss had come joy and love, proving that sometimes the darkest moments precede the brightest futures. Their love story became legend, passed down through the generations as proof that true love exists, that it can heal wounds thought too deep to mend, that it can create beauty from ashes. Logan and Grace Jensen lived on in the hearts and memories of their descendants, an inspiration and an example. They had found each other when both most needed to be found, and they had held on to each other with everything they had. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.